School bully. Slaps a black girl. Her father's men are already watching. Trouble was brewing in the corridors of Westbridge High, the kind that silenced chatter and turned curious stares into anxious glances. Everyone sensed an undercurrent. The new student, Naya, seemed to draw envy from certain classmates, especially from a notoriously arrogant bully named Trevor. In a place meant for learning, dark shadows loomed. One day, Trevor's aggression crossed the line. In the most shocking way, he slapped Naya across the face. Yet amid the chaos, no one realized Naya's father was far from ordinary. Lurking around every corner were his watchful men, prepared to unleash a storm no one could have anticipated. Naya Williams stepped onto the campus of Westbridge High with a sense of both anticipation and unease. She was used to new starts. Her father's career kept them moving from city to city every few years. But something about this move felt different. Perhaps it was the reputation Westbridge carried, top-rated facilities, prestigious alumni, and a student body rumored to be fiercely competitive. Her father, Marcus Williams, was a name whispered in certain business circles. He had recently been appointed as a high-level consultant for Tesla, advising on energy solutions. This meant Naya's presence at Westbridge was more than happenstance. It was part of a new chapter in her father's impressive globe-trotting career. At first glance, Naya was an average junior. She wore neat braids tied back with a bright headband, carried a well-worn backpack, and tried to blend into the hallway traffic. But there was a quiet confidence about her that some students noticed immediately. In classes, she answered questions with practiced ease, offering thoughtful insights that went beyond textbook knowledge. Teachers quickly pegged her as a bright student. While a few classmates nodded with respect, others eyed her with suspicion. Changing schools mid-year always invited speculation. Who was this new girl? Where was she from? Why did her father seem to have such clout? One of the first to take an interest in Nia's arrival was Selina Harding, a friendly but somewhat shy girl seated next to her in English Lit. They bonded over a shared admiration for Maya Angelou's poetry. Nia, with her keen sense of empathy, realized Selina was the type who got overlooked, too timid, too lacking in social bravado, but with a gentle spirit that shone through her warm smile. She reminded Naya of a friend she'd left behind in Chicago, and they hit it off immediately. However, it wasn't long before this budding friendship caught the attention of Trevor Caldwell. Trevor was used to being the center of attention, especially among those who valued popularity above all else. He wore expensive sneakers, boasted about his family's lavish vacations, and carried himself with an arrogant swagger that brooked no challenge. A typical day for Trevor included mocking someone's clothes, ridiculing their interests, or undermining their confidence for a cheap laugh. His friends egged him on, seeking acceptance through complicity. When Trevor saw Nia and Selina chatting and ignoring him, it ruffled his ego. A part of him resented anyone who seemed comfortable in their own skin without his approval. Naya, in particular, radiated a self-assurance he found both intriguing and threatening. He made up his mind Naya needed to be put in her place, and he was just the person to do it. Unaware of the extent of Trevor's hostility, Naya went about her first week discovering the school's clubs and activities. She enjoyed the well-stocked library, the newly renovated gym, and the advanced science labs. She called her father every evening, recounting her day. Marcus listened attentively occasionally, hinting that if she ran into any trouble, she should let him know immediately. His voice carried a seriousness that Nia recognized from past experiences. It was the tone he used when he foresaw complications nobody else could imagine. The second week brought a shift in atmosphere. Nia noticed that whispers followed her in the corridors, and she sometimes caught students casting furtive looks her way. She tried to brush it off, attributing it to the usual curiosity that came with being a new student. However, she couldn't ignore the disturbing vibe that descended whenever Trevor Caldwell and his clique passed by. They would shoot her cold stares, or worse, condescending smirks that made her skin prickle. Selena urged her to keep her head down, mentioning that Trevor had a track record of singling out new kids for bullying. Nia refused to yield to intimidation. She had faced prejudice before, both subtle and overt, and she had developed a thick skin. Still, something about Trevor's vendetta felt more invasive, as though it wasn't just petty bullying, but something more personal. Each day, she noticed how his jabs grew bolder, from snide comments about her appearance or background to disparaging remarks about her choice of friends. She tried ignoring him, hoping he'd lose interest once he saw she wouldn't be easily provoked. One afternoon, Nia found a nasty note scrawled in black marker on her locker. "Go back to the ghetto, where you belong." Infuriated and humiliated, she tore the note down and stuffed it in her backpack. She didn't want to give Trevor or any of his cronies the satisfaction of seeing her upset. Selena saw the anger simmering in Nia's eyes, but she also noticed Nia restraining herself. It wasn't that Nia was weak, it was that she knew how to pick her battles. She carried a quiet but potent sense of self-worth that refused to be sullied by ignorance. Later that day, Nia retreated to the art room to clear her head. She didn't consider herself much of an artist, but there was something soothing about being around paints, clay, and half-finished sculptures. It was here that she ran into Mr. Johnson, the art teacher. He was one of the few teachers who treated students as equals rather than underlings. He asked if she was okay, noticing the glimmer of tears she tried to hide. Nia confided in him about the hateful note. With a concerned but steady gaze, Mr. Johnson encouraged her to report it. He also hinted that the administration could do something about Trevor, if only someone would come forward with proof. However, Nia's past experiences made her skeptical of institutional support. She remembered times when complaints of harassment in previous schools had led nowhere, especially when the bully was a well-connected student with wealthy parents. She thanked Mr. Johnson for his concern, but didn't promise she'd take further action. While this was happening, Nia's father was keeping close tabs on her situation from his office at Tesla. Marcus made discreet inquiries about Westbridge High, discovering that it was not only academically rigorous, but also had a history of subtle social hierarchies. Students like Trevor, who came from affluent backgrounds, often enjoyed a privileged status. Marcus didn't like what he heard, so he quietly arranged to have an old friend and associate, Darren, move to town. Darren was a skilled security consultant who had worked with Marcus on several high-profile projects worldwide. His job was simple: keep an eye on Nia and ensure her well-being no matter what. Little did Trevor or anyone else know that while they whispered behind Nia's back, a quiet watch was already in place. Darren integrated himself into the neighborhood, seamlessly posing as just another resident transferring from out of state. He took a job in a local security firm, but he also made time to be near the school grounds during Nia's arrival and departure. From his vantage points, a parked car, a coffee shop window, a bench near the track field, Darren noted every detail. A large chunk of his updates went straight to Marcus, who responded with a few words of gratitude and directives to remain covert. Nevertheless, Nia's father hoped it wouldn't come to drastic measures. He had faith in his daughter's resilience and believed that the best lesson she could learn was to handle adversity with grace. But should the situation escalate beyond what Nia could bear, he was prepared to step in. And when Marcus Williams stepped in, the consequences were never small or forgettable. In the meantime, Nia tried not to dwell on negative feelings. She invested her energy in her classes, often impressing her teachers with thoughtful work. She joined a volunteer group that tutored underclassmen and even considered trying out for the debate team. But Trevor was never far from her mind. His presence loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. She knew it was only a matter of time before he made a move that would cross a line. She just didn't know how drastic it would be, or how meticulously her father's men had already choreographed their protective dance around her. Tension mounted in the weeks that followed. Trevor's actions grew more invasive, fueled by some twisted desire for domination. He taunted Nia with offhand comments in the cafeteria line. "Did your dad steal someone else's job to get you here, and orchestrated small pranks designed to embarrass her in class?" One morning, when Nia opened her backpack to pull out a textbook, she discovered everything inside soaked in soda. She suspected Trevor's involvement, but she had no proof. She tried to keep her composure, but the frustration was taking a toll. Selena could see that Nia was starting to lose her usual calm. After this latest incident, Nia decided she couldn't just sit back. During lunch, she marched straight to Vice Principal Brenner's office, demanded a meeting, and reported the ongoing harassment. She produced the crumpled note as evidence. Brenner listened with a stony face, eyebrows knit together in concern. To Nia's dismay, her complaints were met with vague assurances. "We'll look into it, and we take these matters seriously." The conversation ended with a polite dismissal, but Nia left feeling uneasy. She had a strong suspicion that whatever investigations they promised would do little to curtail Trevor's bullying, especially if his family's influence weighed in. Elsewhere, Darren kept close watch. He noted the subtle shifts in Nia's body language, the way her posture slumped a fraction more each day, the heaviness in her eyes when she got off the school bus. Through discreet channels, he relayed everything to Marcus, who was troubled by the slow but evident impact of Trevor's cruelty on his daughter. As much as Marcus trusted Nia's judgment, a paternal fury simmered beneath his measured facade. One Friday afternoon, Nia was hurrying to catch her bus when Trevor and two of his lackeys cornered her by the lockers. The hallway was almost empty, except for a few stragglers and a custodian at the far end mopping the floor. Trevor blocked her path with a sneer. "So you think you can snitch on me to Brenner?" he hissed, eyes full of malice. Nia's heart pounded, but she met his glare defiantly. "Back off, Trevor. I'm not afraid of you," she said, her voice trembling only slightly. Trevor laughed, an ugly sound that echoed down the corridor. "You should be," he replied, stepping closer. "I can make your life a living nightmare." His cronies stood by, smirking. One of them banged his fist on a nearby locker for added intimidation. Nia glanced around, and her mind raced. She considered fighting back, but the odds were stacked against her. Before she could respond, the sudden sound of approaching footsteps startled them. A teacher appeared from around the corner, and Trevor backed off, issuing one last glare before turning to leave. Nia's heart hammered in her chest, but relief washed over her. Darren, watching from a distance, clenched his jaw. A confrontation was coming. He could feel it. That weekend, Marcus called Nia for their usual father-daughter check-in. His voice was calm, but Nia sensed the concern behind it. "How are things at school?" "Are you safe?" he asked bluntly. Nia hesitated, torn between wanting to handle the situation alone and seeking her father's help. Ultimately, she gave him a watered-down version of events, downplaying the severity to avoid alarming him. Marcus, however, was no fool. He pressed for details, and Nia admitted there had been some incidents. Marcus's silence on the other end of the line said more than words ever could. After the call, Marcus reached out to Darren again. "I think it's time we stepped up our watch," he said, his voice taut with restrained anger. Darren agreed, suggesting they place another operative in the vicinity, someone who could blend in with the school staff or volunteer programs. Marcus approved the plan without hesitation. He cared deeply for Nia's sense of agency, but he would not let her face physical danger alone. Meanwhile, Trevor was reveling in the attention he garnered from tormenting Nia. Rumors floated around the school hallways. Nia was a gold digger. Nia was only there because of her father's money. Nia was plotting to get certain students expelled. Trevor's lies cast a wide net, snaring gullible ears with sensational stories. Yet Nia's actual supporters, like Selena Mr. Johnson, and a growing number of classmates who saw through Trevor's propaganda, offered quiet but meaningful solidarity. Adding to the drama, Nia heard whispers that Trevor's father was influential in local politics, known to make strategic donations to the school board. This only heightened her apprehension about seeking institutional help. Despite her best efforts to rise above the fray, Nia felt the weight of Trevor's malice bearing down on her each time she set foot on campus. Throughout the tension, Nia clung to a promise she'd made to herself: never let another's hatred define her sense of self. She took her anger and channeled it into her volunteer work, staying late to tutor sophomores who struggled with biology. She confided in Selena about her fears, but also about her determination to stand strong. Together, they formed a mini-study group, bringing in a couple of other students who had faced their own encounters with bullying. Their unity was a small beacon of hope amidst the hostility. Still, no one could predict just how explosive Trevor's rage would become, or how prepared Nia's father was to meet that fury head-on through the subtle yet powerful means he had quietly assembled around his daughter. Monday morning arrived with an air of anticipation. Nia felt it the moment she walked through the main entrance of Westbridge High. Trevor's gaze found her almost instantly like a predator spotting its prey. This time, Nia noticed a new glint in his eyes, as though he had finally mustered the nerve to take his harassment to another level. Darren, positioned inconspicuously by a row of trees near the school's parking lot, sensed a disturbance in the routine. He noted the tension in the students' faces, overheard scraps of conversation, hinting at something big about to happen. For the first few hours, Nia managed to avoid crossing paths with Trevor, focusing on her classes and trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. But a nagging pit in her stomach kept reminding her that the confrontation was likely inevitable. Her anxiety spiked during lunch when she spotted Trevor's table in the cafeteria. He was flanked by his usual entourage, but their laughter seemed more forced, more sinister today. Selena, sensing Nia's unease, suggested they eat outside in the courtyard. Nia agreed. She took her tray and followed Selena out into the crisp autumn air. They settled at a secluded bench beneath a large oak tree. As they sipped their drinks, Nia did her best to discuss their upcoming literature project, but her voice was taut with tension. Selena kept glancing nervously back at the cafeteria doors. Halfway through their meal, the double doors swung open. Trevor and two of his friends emerged, scanning the courtyard. Their eyes locked onto Nia and Selena. Nia felt her pulse quicken. Selena's face went pale. Trevor swaggered over, tray in hand, wearing a grin that promised trouble. He paused a few feet away, looking Nia up and down with undisguised contempt. "What's wrong, Nia? Couldn't handle eating around decent people?" He sneered, gesturing broadly as if to encompass the entire school. Selena opened her mouth to protest, but Nia squeezed her arm, warning her to stay quiet. "Just wanted some fresh air," Nia replied, voice steady but guarded. She refused to show fear. Trevor's two cronies snickered in unison, stepping closer. "Fresh air, huh?" Trevor echoed. "Maybe you don't deserve it. You come here, act all high and mighty with your fancy father. You think you're better than us?" Nia stood up. She was done allowing Trevor to loom over her. Selina stood beside her, though trembling visibly. "I've never said I'm better than anyone," Nia replied. "I just want to be left alone." Trevor narrowed his eyes. Something unhinged flickered in his expression. He took one step forward, invading Nia's personal space. "Well, that's the problem. You are a nobody here, but you walk around like you own the place. And you told on me too. Brenner, didn't you?" Nia took a slow breath. "I reported harassment. If that's you, then it's your problem, not mine." A muscle twitched in Trevor's jaw. His friends egged him on with low jeers. The courtyard was less crowded now. Only a handful of onlookers lingered, sensing a confrontation. One or two took out their phones, ready to capture any drama. Darren, stationed on a nearby sidewalk disguised as a local gardener, pruning shrubs, discreetly watched every move. Before Nia could react, Trevor's hand lashed out. The slap struck her across the face, echoing in the courtyard. A collective gasp rippled among the onlookers. Selina yelped, stepping back in horror. Nia stumbled, her vision blurring momentarily from the impact. Pain seared her cheek and shock thundered in her chest. For a split second, the entire campus seemed to hold its breath. Trevor stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild. The reality of what he'd just done was sinking in, but pride and rage kept him from backing down. Nia slowly raised a trembling hand to her stinging cheek. She stared at Trevor, her mind reeling. He'd actually hit her in broad daylight on school grounds for no reason but his own twisted anger. Selina rushed to Nia's side, tears in her eyes. "You can't do that," she cried, voice quivering with both fear and indignation. Trevor only sneered, though a flicker of doubt crossed his face when he noticed students starting to record on their phones. He turned to spit out a vicious remark, but Nia refused to let him speak. "Don't you ever touch me again," she hissed, her voice hoarse with anger. She held her ground, though her knees felt weak. She wanted nothing more than to retaliate, but something in her kept her from striking back. It was the resolve she'd built over the years, the calm that came from her father's teaching. Violence wouldn't solve this, but she would not stay silent either. Then, out of nowhere, another voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" "Mr. Johnson." The art teacher appeared, alarm etched on his face. He'd seen the slap from a distance and rushed over. Several other staff members were converging as well. Trevor, caught in the act with multiple witnesses, stepped back, face flushing. He tried to stammer an excuse, but it died on his lips. Mr. Johnson immediately turned to Nia, gently checking if she was all right. Nia nodded, but the tears she'd been holding back finally slipped free. The crowd of students grew larger, some glaring at Trevor, others whispering in shock. Trevor's cronies tried to fade away, but staff members ushered them to stay put. Within minutes, security arrived, and a stunned hush fell over the courtyard. Meanwhile, Darren had already discreetly texted Marcus Williams, "Contact made. Nia assaulted. Stand by for resolution." Though Nia was unaware of it, her father's response arrived in seconds. It contained only 3 words. "Proceed with caution." A storm was about to descend on Westbridge High, and Trevor Caldwell had just lit the fuse with a single violent act. The courtyard fiasco triggered a chain reaction. Within minutes, Vice Principal Brenner arrived on the scene, closely followed by the school nurse and a security officer. Nia was escorted to the nurse's office, her throbbing cheek now showing a faint bruise. Selina accompanied her, still trembling in the aftermath. Trevor was taken to Brenner's office, his face pale, his earlier bravado replaced by something akin to shock. Outside, word spread through the halls like wildfire. Trevor Caldwell had slapped Nia Williams, and there were witnesses, possibly even video evidence. Darren lingered near the nurse's office, checking on Nia through a window. He knew she wouldn't recognize him, but that didn't matter. His sole concern was her well-being, and for the moment, she seemed physically safe. In the corridors, staff bustled with tense urgency. Mr. Johnson paced back and forth, furious at the assault he'd just witnessed. Students whispered in clusters, some expressing empathy for Nia, others in disbelief that Trevor had actually dared to strike someone in public. Meanwhile, in Vice Principal Brenner's office, Trevor slouched in a chair, arms crossed. Gone was the smirking bully who reveled in intimidation. In his place sat a cornered young man, frantically trying to rationalize his actions. Brenner eyed him with disapproval. "Trevor, this is a serious offense. We have credible witnesses and possibly recorded evidence. You assaulted another student." Trevor's tongue felt like lead. He tried to muster excuses. "She provoked me. She was disrespectful. It was an accident," but none of them sounded convincing even to his own ears. The truth was plain. He had crossed a line, and there was no easy way back. Still, a seed of arrogance remained. He could almost hear his father's voice telling him that the Caldwells never bowed to anyone, that they had the resources to handle any trouble. Over in the nurse's office, Nia sat on a small cot, Selina by her side. She clutched an ice pack against her cheek, fighting the swirl of emotions crashing inside her. She felt humiliated, enraged, and oddly relieved that the long simmering conflict had finally reached a boiling point. Her phone buzzed on the small table next to her. She glanced at it and saw her father's number. She hesitated, not sure if she had the emotional capacity for that conversation. Eventually, she picked it up. Near came Marcus's steady voice. "Are you hurt?" She swallowed hard. "I'm okay, Dad. Just shaken up." Marcus exhaled a slow breath. "I'm here for you, baby. Whatever you need. We'll handle this." Nia closed her eyes, tears threatening again. She wanted to be strong, to show her father she could deal with life's ugliness on her own. But in that moment, she needed him. "Can you come?" she whispered. Marcus's voice softened. "I'm already on my way." She hung up, heart pounding. A complex wave of relief and anxiety washed over her. She knew her father wouldn't let this slide, but she also worried about what he might do. Their conversations about seeking justice had always been measured. Marcus believed in civilized solutions whenever possible. But Nia also understood the lengths her father would go to protect her, and it frightened her almost as much as it reassured her. Unknown to Nia, Trevor's father, Henry Caldwell, had also been notified. He was a prominent figure in local politics, a man who prided himself on maintaining a clean public image. The moment he heard that his son was involved in a physical assault, panic and anger coiled in his gut. He dialed a few board members he knew personally, pressing them for details. At the same time, he instructed his legal team to stand by. Henry Caldwell was not one to let a scandal mar his family name. Outside, Darren discreetly watched as a sleek black sedan pulled up to the school's entrance. Marcus Williams stepped out, dressed in a crisp suit. He moved with controlled urgency, giving polite but firm nods to the school security. Darren followed at a distance, ensuring no unwanted eyes could eavesdrop on their subtle interactions. Marcus didn't need to acknowledge Darren. The two had worked together long enough to communicate almost telepathically. Marcus proceeded directly to the administrative wing, where he was greeted by a frazzled secretary. Within moments, the door to Brenner's office swung open, revealing Trevor seated sullenly inside. The tension skyrocketed as Marcus locked eyes with the boy who had dared to strike his daughter, an older man in a tailored suit. Henry Caldwell stood beside Trevor, jaw clenched. Brenner cleared his throat. "Mr. Williams, Mr. Caldwell, thank you for coming. We have a very serious situation on our hands." Henry was quick to interject, voice dripping with practiced politeness. "Yes, indeed we do. I'd like to clarify the facts because my son insists he was provoked." Trevor said nothing. Eyes downcast. Marcus leveled a calm, icy stare at Trevor before turning to Henry. "Your son assaulted my daughter in plain sight. There are multiple witnesses, and I understand several recorded it on their phones." He spoke quietly, but there was a simmering power behind his words. "I'm here to ensure that justice is served and that Naya feels safe in this institution." Henry tried to keep his composure, though a vein in his temple throbbed. "Of course we want all parties to feel safe, but let's be reasonable. Kids have misunderstandings all the time. My son might have overreacted. But overreacted?" Marcus' repeated voice dangerously low. He slapped her across the face. "That's not an overreaction. That's assault." Trevor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. For the first time, he seemed to realize that this was far more serious than a typical scuffle between students. Brenner attempted to mediate, but it was clear the tension in the room could shatter glass. Eventually, he managed to steer the conversation toward next steps, disciplinary action, possibly involving suspension or even expulsion, depending on the findings of the formal investigation. Henry Caldwell bristled at the word expulsion, firing a glare at Brenner. Marcus simply asked, "Where is my daughter? I need to see her." With relief, Brenner led Marcus to the nurse's office. The moment Naya saw her father walk in, she felt a wave of emotion. Gone was her usual stoicism. She let out a small sob and allowed herself to lean into his reassuring presence. Marcus gently inspected her bruised cheek, fury flashing momentarily in his eyes. "We're pressing charges," he said softly, just loud enough for Nia and the nurse to hear. "But first, let's make sure you're all right." Nia nodded, torn between gratitude and the burden of conflict. She wondered how far her father would go to make Trevor and his family pay. Part of her wanted to demand the harshest punishment to see Trevor publicly humiliated. Another part of her wanted simply to move on and forget this nightmare. But she knew that was impossible now. The machine had been set in motion. Her father's protective instincts, Trevor's father's political clout, and the looming presence of the law. In the back of her mind, Nia also remembered Darren. She wondered if he was nearby, if he'd seen everything, if he'd been the one to alert her father so quickly. A sense of safety mingled with apprehension. She couldn't shake the feeling that the events unfolding at Westbridge High were merely the tip of the iceberg. There were undercurrents of power and influence that ran deep, and she was caught in the middle of them, bruised cheek and all. In the days that followed, Westbridge High buzzed with the aftermath of the assault. The incident had quickly gone viral among students thanks to several video clips shared on social media. Though the school administration tried to clamp down on unauthorized recordings, the cat was out of the bag. The entire community was talking about the infamous slap. Teachers discussed it in hushed tones in the staff lounge. Parents bombarded the principal's office with calls expressing concern for their children's safety. Trevor was suspended pending the outcome of an investigation. Henry Caldwell fumed, making calls to the school board members he had sway over, urging them to keep perspective. A handful of those board members were reluctant to side with him this time, unsettled by the clear evidence of violence. Even more troubling for Henry was Marcus Williams's formidable reputation. Word had it that Marcus wasn't just an accomplished consultant. He had connections that ranged from corporate boardrooms to philanthropic circles and beyond. Henry realized that if Marcus decided to press charges, the Caldwells could be in real jeopardy legally and socially. As for Nia, she found herself at the center of a storm she never asked for. Overnight, she became both a figure of sympathy and a lightning rod for gossip. Some students approached her with supportive words, sharing their own stories of being bullied. Others loyal to Trevor spread rumors painting her as the troublemaker, claiming she'd lured Trevor into hitting her to gain attention. Each day at school felt like walking through a minefield of stares and whispers. The bruise on her cheek had faded to a dull yellow, but emotionally the wound was still fresh. Selina remained steadfast by Nia's side. Together, they formed an unlikely band of supporters, including some of the underclassmen who admired Nia's tutoring sessions. Mr. Johnson openly denounced Trevor's behavior, but he also pleaded with Nia not to let bitterness consume her. "Use your voice," he urged. "File a statement. Press the administration to protect you and others from this kind of abuse." Nia nodded, torn between wanting to fight back and feeling overwhelmed by the ugliness swirling around her. Meanwhile, Marcus Williams took decisive steps behind the scenes. He coordinated with the family's attorney, laying the groundwork for a legal complaint. But he also sent a clear private message to Henry Caldwell. The only way to avoid a full-blown lawsuit was for Trevor to issue a genuine apology and accept the school's disciplinary measures without interference. Henry balked at the demand, furious that Marcus dared to set terms. Yet part of him recognized that stoking a legal battle with a man of Marcus's resources could backfire, spectacularly tarnishing his carefully crafted public image. Trevor, back home, stewed in a mixture of fear and resentment. He was grounded indefinitely, and his parents were at odds with each other. His mother demanded he apologize while Henry was fixated on damage control and maintaining the Caldwell name. Late at night, Trevor scrolled through social media reading posts that either excoriated him or ridiculed him. He was experiencing, perhaps for the first time, what it felt like to be the pariah he'd made so many others feel like. On a dreary Wednesday afternoon, Nia and Marcus arrived at the local police station to give a formal statement. Darren, ever watchful, accompanied them at a distance. As Nia recounted the events, her voice cracked but didn't break. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Once the statement was recorded, the detective in charge indicated that they had sufficient grounds to pursue assault charges. The decision was now up to the district attorney. Nia left the station feeling both relieved and burdened, relieved that her side of the story was on record, burdened by the weight of possible courtroom battles. The next day, Nia returned to school. Although she felt an undercurrent of anxiety, she also felt oddly empowered. No longer was she content to simply endure hostility. She knew she had a right to an education free from violence. She walked into her classes with her head held high, ignoring the whispers, determined to prove that Trevor's attempt to break her spirit had failed. During lunch, she and Selina sat in the library, a quieter, safer haven. They discussed upcoming exams and pored over notes. Occasionally, Nia caught glimpses of pity in Selina's eyes. Finally, Nia sighed and said, "Stop worrying. I'm okay, or I'm going to be." Selina's cheeks flushed. "I just hate seeing you go through this. You didn't deserve any of it." "I know. But I can't let him win," Nia replied, more to herself than anyone else. "If I hide forever, that's exactly what he wants." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft cough. They looked up to see Mr. Surla Johnson standing nearby holding a couple of art books. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. The girls nodded. He set the books down and sat leaning forward on his elbows. "I wanted to tell you both that I've spoken with the principal," Mr. Johnson began. "They're bringing in a mediation counselor to address the climate of bullying at this school. It's long overdue. And Nia, your courage in coming forward has been a catalyst for that." Nia stared at the table, not quite sure how to respond. She was grateful, yet part of her wished it hadn't taken a public assault to spark real change. Mr. Johnson continued, "I can't promise it'll be perfect, but I hope you'll see that your voice does matter." After he left, Nia turned to Selina. "Maybe this whole nightmare will count for something," she said quietly. Selina nodded, offering a small smile, and for a moment, Nia felt a glimmer of hope that despite the ugliness, there could be a path forward, one that made Westbridge a safer, kinder place. That hope was tested sooner than she anticipated. Late that afternoon, as she walked toward her bus in the parking lot, an SUV screeched to a halt a few feet away. The window rolled down, revealing Henry Caldwell's stern face. Trevor sat in the passenger seat, looking subdued. Henry fixed Nia with a tense gaze. Near a word he called out, attempting a friendly tone, but failing to mask his impatience. She paused, uncertain. Selina, sensing trouble, stayed close. Henry beckoned her closer with a stiff wave of his hand. Reluctantly, Nia approached the SUV. "Yes, Mr. Caldwell?" she asked, voice guarded. Henry forced a tight smile. "I'd like to extend an apology on behalf of my son. He'd like to speak with you. Maybe we can settle this matter without further drama." He directed a pointed glance at Trevor, who stared at his hands. Nia's heart thudded. The last thing she wanted was a coerced apology in a parking lot. She also recalled her father's warning not to engage without legal counsel present. Still, curiosity and a small desire for closure prompted her to step closer. Trevor rolled down his own window, avoiding eye contact. "Nia," he began, voice flat. I'm sorry for, hurting you." Selina frowned, unimpressed by the lack of sincerity. Nia listened, her gaze steady. "That's it?" she asked. "You slapped me in front of the whole school, started rumors, and made my life a nightmare for weeks, and all you can say is sorry for hurting you." Trevor bristled, a flash of anger returning to his eyes. "What more do you want? It's not like I planned to hurt you." "Enough," Henry interrupted, glaring at Trevor. He pivoted back to Nia. "We're trying to resolve this amicably. We understand your family might press charges, but that won't do anyone any good. Think about it. Your father's time, the court's time, your time. Everyone suffers." Nia felt her blood boil. "Amicably. Maybe you should consider that before your son decided to use violence. Also, it's not about wasting time, it's about accountability." Henry exhaled sharply. "I see you're set on making this more complicated than it needs to be. Let's just say I tried." With that, he rolled up the window, cutting off any further discussion. The SUV sped away, leaving Naya shaken and Selina outraged. As they boarded the bus, Naya's mind reeled. She realized how deeply entrenched power could be, how far some people would go to protect their own interests at the expense of justice. Yet Henry Caldwell's hasty retreat only reinforced her resolve to stand firm. Whether or not Trevor ever offered a genuine apology was irrelevant. Nia had found her voice, and she refused to be silenced, no matter how many powerful people tried to intimidate her. Little did she know her father had already set the next stage in motion. Darren was not the only watchful eye in Westbridge. Now another associate had arrived, tasked with gathering information about the Caldwells' backroom dealings. Marcus wanted to ensure that if Henry tried to leverage his political connections to bury the assault case, there would be evidence. The net was closing in around Trevor's family, and karma was knocking at their door with increasing insistence. Over the weekend, the atmosphere in the Williams household was a mixture of quiet resolve and underlying tension. Nia tried to focus on her homework, music, and the few things that gave her solace, like reading novels by her favorite authors, Toni Morrison and Octavia Butler. Yet every time her bruised cheek throbbed, or she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror, she was reminded of Trevor's assault and the ongoing legal battle looming ahead. Marcus was in constant motion, taking calls from lawyers, responding to emails, and conferring with Darren. Occasionally, Nia caught fragments of these conversations, hearing words like deposition, restraining order, and witness testimonies. Each term made her heart pound. She knew these were necessary steps, but part of her longed for the simpler days when she wasn't entangled in a legal showdown. Meanwhile, Henry Caldwell made his moves as well. He hosted a small fundraiser at his estate, inviting influential community members and school officials. The gathering was ostensibly about raising money for local charities, but it doubled as a forum for him to spin a narrative that Trevor was just a boy who made a mistake, that the Williams family was overreacting, and that an amicable resolution would be best for everyone. Some guests nodded sympathetically. Others wondered if Henry was trying too hard to control the outcome. The whispering rumor mill churned, and the Caldwells' reputation teetered in an uncomfortable limbo. As Monday dawned, Nia prepared herself for another day at Westbridge High. She felt a knot in her stomach, knowing that the gossip would only intensify now that Trevor's suspension was official. Despite it all, she refused to hide at home. With her father's blessing and a subtle assurance from Darren that he would be close by, Nia stepped onto the school grounds. Eyes followed her everywhere. A few brave souls approached to offer kind words, or share that they too had been bullied by Trevor in the past. One girl, tears in her eyes, thanked Nia for speaking up, saying that her actions had inspired others to come forward. Nia realized that by standing against Trevor, she had unintentionally become a symbol for those who suffered in silence. It was a heavy responsibility, but also a meaningful one. At lunchtime, Nia and Selina found themselves in the school courtyard once again. This time the atmosphere was calmer. Trevor wasn't around to stir trouble. They settled on a bench, unwrapping their sandwiches. "Did you hear?" Selina asked, excitement tinging her usually soft voice. A couple of juniors from the track team told Principal Browning about Trevor harassing them too. Apparently they have screenshots of threatening messages. Nia's eyebrows shot up. "Really? That's big. Maybe now the administration can't ignore his pattern of behavior." Selina nodded. "Exactly. I think people are finally realizing they can speak out without being immediately shut down." She paused, looking around, as if to ensure no one else was eavesdropping. This might not be the end of it, though. Trevor's dad is powerful. Nia exhaled. I know. But my dad's not exactly powerless either. They shared a small, hopeful smile, finishing their lunch in relative peace. The moment felt like a reprieve after weeks of turmoil, a sense that perhaps justice could prevail if enough people stood together. However, the turmoil was far from over. That afternoon, Vice Principal Brenner summoned Naya to his office. Seated across from him, she noticed how drained he looked, dark circles under his eyes. Near, he began folding his hands on the desk. I've been reviewing statements and speaking with staff. I want to assure you that the school is taking your case very seriously. We're working with the police investigation and cooperating fully. Naya nodded, sensing a but coming. Sure enough, Brenner sighed. That said, Henry Caldwell has been in touch with certain board members. He's alleging that you provoked Trevor and that there's more to the story. He's also implying that a legal battle could be damaging to our school's reputation and resources. A flare of anger lit Naya's chest. So he's threatening to pull funding or something if you don't side with him. Brenner shook his head. Frustration etched on his face. He hasn't explicitly said so, but the implication is there. I'm caught between wanting to protect our students and dealing with the politics at play. I just want you to be prepared. This might get messy. Nia clenched her jaw. It's already messy. Leaving Brenner's office, Nia's mind churned with new anxieties. She thought about the other students coming forward, about the possibility of legal twists that might drag on for months. Yet amid all this, she recalled something her father always said: darkness thrives when good people are intimidated into silence. She refused to be silent. Outside school, Darren kept a watchful eye. He noticed Naya's tense expression as she emerged from the building. Through coded messages, he informed Marcus that the situation was escalating. Marcus replied swiftly, instructing Darren to ramp up efforts to uncover any questionable dealings Henry Caldwell might be engaged in. The strategy was simple. If Henry wanted to flex his political muscle, Marcus would expose any skeletons he had tucked away. Within days, new murmurs surfaced around town. Rumors hinted at Henry Caldwell's involvement in shady land deals. Nepotistic appointments to local government positions and questionable campaign financing. None of it had been proven yet, but Darren's team was gathering evidence methodically. At the same time, Naya found renewed courage in the small victories at school. More and more students voiced their support, sharing that they too had felt fear under Trevor's bullying. One crisp morning as Naya headed to her locker, she found a note taped to it. Her heart pounded. Memories of the hateful note from before flooded her mind. But this time, it was different. The handwriting was neat, and the message read, "Thank you for standing up. You're not alone." A friend. Nia's eyes misted. She carefully folded the note and slipped it into her backpack, struck by how a few kind words could combat weeks of cruelty. That evening, Naya and Marcus shared a rare moment of calm in their living room. A fire crackled in the fireplace, the soft glow illuminating the photos on the mantel pictures of Nia's earlier years, cities they'd traveled to, accomplishments they'd celebrated. Marcus sipped tea, then turned to Nia. "I know this isn't easy," he said softly, "but I'm proud of you for not letting fear dictate your life." Nia leaned into the couch cushions, her shoulders relaxing for the first time that day. "I just want this to be over," she admitted, "but at the same time, I don't want Trevor to get away with what he did." Marcus nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes the only way out is through. We'll see this to the end." Their conversation was interrupted by a call from their lawyer. Marcus stepped out to take it. Naya stared into the fire, thinking about how quickly life had changed. From the moment she stepped foot in Westbridge High, she'd hoped for a fresh start. New friends, decent grades, maybe even a fun extracurricular activity. Instead, she got entangled in a saga involving privilege violence and political maneuvers. Yet through it all, she discovered unexpected depths of her own resilience. She realized that her father's network of protective eyes was not just a testament to his power, but also to his love for her. The next morning, Naya found Selina waiting for her by the entrance. Guess what Selina said, smiling broadly? "Mr. Johnson told me there's going to be a special assembly on bullying and student rights. He thinks it's because of your situation." A flicker of satisfaction lit Nia's face. Good. People need to know they have a voice. As they walked side by side, Nia felt a surge of renewed determination. Even if Henry Caldwell tried to manipulate the system, even if Trevor refused to own up to his actions, the walls were closing in. The truth was coming to light, and Nia had no intention of backing down. She had seen darkness, but she also saw that light could break through one brave step. One ally. One act of solidarity at a time. What none of them realized yet was just how swiftly karma would strike. In the coming days, revelations would surface that would shake Henry Caldwell's world, exposing him to a reckoning far more devastating than any short-term suspension or quiet legal settlement could ever match. And in that moment, Nia would witness firsthand the power of standing firm, knowing that the invisible shield her father had woven around her was far stronger and more far-reaching than anyone could have guessed. Darkness swept over Westbridge High, but gave way to a dawn of new awareness, proving that no bully's hold can last forever when truth and courage stand in opposition. Nia's bravery unleashed a wave of revelations, exposing not just Trevor's misdeeds, but the tangled power plays of those who once hid behind influence and wealth. Her story stands as a testament no one should silently endure humiliation or violence. Each voice joined with another can reshape even the most entrenched systems of injustice. Her journey shows that standing firm can spark a collective awakening, one that crosses boundaries of status and fear. If this story moved you, spread the word. Let Nia's stand inspire your own. Like, share, and subscribe to help us shine a light on bullying's darkest corners. Your engagement fuels the momentum toward positive change, reminding everyone that they are never alone. Together, our voices demand accountability and illuminate hope in hallways everywhere.